Hello students, Om Tejasvina Vadhitamastu. Welcome to Sangli Shikshan Sanstha, Sangli YouTube channel. Today we are going to study Standard 5th Subject EVS 2, Chapter number 2, History and the Concept of Time. In the previous chapter, you have already learned about what is history. Now, let's learn about history and the concept of time. In this chapter, you will come across 4 important points. First one is division of time and the timeline. Second one is measurement of time and methods of measuring time. Third one is historical periods. And fourth one is scientific methods of measuring time and establishing age. Dating, that is dating method. So let's begin with division of time and the timeline. There are different methods of reckoning time. Reckoning means measure. That means to understand time, there are various methods. Time is continuous, but for our convenience, we divide it into periods. The method that we use for reckoning time depends on our purpose for dividing it, and the manner in which we do it means how can we understand time in a better ways. For that, we need to divide it properly. For example, at sunrise, we say it is morning now. The day has just begun. Whereas at sunset, we say it is evening now. Soon it will be night. At the end of the day, it becomes dark and it is night. This means that we divide the day into 2 parts, that is day and night. Our earth also rotates around its axis at a certain speed. This you have already learned in EVS 1, our earth and our solar system chapter. Similarly, it also revolves around the sun. So, you have familiar with the rotation and revolution of the earth in the chapter The Motions of the Earth. We have already learned about it in EVS 1. The sun has its own light. We receive light from the sun. However, we see light only in daytime. Nights are dark. How does this happen? As the earth rotates around its axis, that part of its surface which turns towards the sun becomes bright. Okay, so you have seen that one part which is facing the sun is bright, whereas other part is in darkness. The part that moves away from the sun moves into darkness. The earth takes 24 hours to complete one rotation around its own axis. These 24 hours are approximately divided into 12 hours of daytime and 12 hours of night. It depends on seasons. Sometimes nights are short and days are long. A period of daytime and the following night together make one full day. So that's all about rotation and revolution of the earth. Then as the days are formed, 7 days, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. From Sunday to Saturday. The 7 days form 1 week. Okay, whether it is Sunday to Sunday or Monday to Sunday. It forms 1 week. 2 weeks make a fortnight. And 4 weeks together make a month. 12 months make a year. In this manner, we understand or measure time in bigger and bigger units. 1 year is followed by another, and when 100 years go by, a century is completed. So, 100 years complete a century. When 10 centuries, that is 1000 years, are gone, a millennium is completed. So, we started from smallest units, time, second, minute, hour, day, week, month, year, century, and finally we have millennium, that is 1000 years. So, such a method of dividing time is known as a unilinear division of time. Now, let's learn about common era, that is Christian era. Okay, it is written in shortest CE, that is common era, Christian era. In the unilinear division of time, years that follow one after the other are arranged in serial order. That is 500, 1000, 1500, 2000. In history books also, a chain of events that follow one after the other is presented in a linear and serial manner. For this, usually we refer to the common era, that is Christian era, written in short as CE. As you see that CE or AD, common era, AD, Anno Domini, which means in the year of our Lord. The calendar we use today is based on the Christian era. Okay, now called the common era. This era began in memory of Jesus Christ. So, from the birth of Jesus Christ, remarked as 0 and trackpot followed by CE. Christian era, that is AD, Anno Domini. And before 0, whatever has happened is BC, that is before Christ. So, the first year of this era is the year when it began. It is shown with the number 1. The years after that are indicated by the next numbers in serial order. The first 100 years, that is the first century of this era, is written as 1 to 100 CE, common era, or 1 to 100 AD, Anno Domini. The period of the first millennium of this era is written as 1 to 1000 CE or 1 to 1000 AD. Now, let's understand the time before the common or Christian era. The period before the common era, that is BC, before Christ, is known as the time BCE, that is before common era. The years of this period are counted and written in reverse order. Means you will see that decades like 100, 500, 1000, 1500, 2000, okay, like a number line. The first century before the common era began at the year 100 BCE and ended with 1 BCE. So at 100 we started with 1st century and end at with 1 BCE. So the 1st century before Common Era is indicated as 100 to 1 BCE, and the first millennium before the Common Era is indicated as 1000 to 1 BCE. Let's look at some examples of this method of indicating time before the Common or Christian Era. The lifetime of Vardhaman Mahavir is written as 599 BC to 527 BC. So, somewhere here between 500 and 1000 BC, BCE, okay. The lifetime of Gautam Buddha is written as 563 BC to 483 BC. So, it goes in reverse manner. So, now let's learn second point. Measure of time and methods of measuring time. Do you know how time was measured before the clocks were invented? In the past or ancient days, when there were no clocks, people used water clocks, hour clocks, candle clocks, sand clocks, and the sundials were used to measure time. We must thank to Galileo Galilei for replacing all these devices by clocks and watches. Some of them are so accurate that they are beyond out our imagination. The pendulum that you see in wall clocks started this replacement, and Galileo was responsible for this. The following are the units of measuring time: 60 seconds 1 minute, 60 minutes 1 hour, 24 hours 1 day, 7 days 1 week, 2 weeks 1 fortnight, 2 fortnight 1 month, 12 months 1 year, 100 years 1 century, 10 century is 1 millennium. A second is the smallest of these units. There are various methods of measuring time in different parts of our world. Of these, the Common or Christian Era is the most widely used. Then, how we indicate a day? Particular day is indicated by writing the date of that day. The date consists of the serial number of that day, followed by the date, month, and the year. The date, month, and the year are in serial order. For example, 28th May 2020, or it can also be written as 27/05/2020. Christian era began in memory of Jesus Christ. It is an age-old custom to start a new age to commemorate a special event. Commemorate means to mark this event. First one is coronation of Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj started Rajabhishek Shaka in 1674 AD to commemorate his coronation. Second, migration of Prophet Muhammad from Mecca to Medina started Hijri era. The Hijri era is the era used in Islamic lunar calendar, which begins its count from Islamic New Year in 622 CE. Now, the next is Shalivahana Shaka and Vikram Samvat are the most common eras that are used in India. The Satavahana king Shalivahana, sometimes identified as Gautami Putra Satakarni, is created with the initiation of the era known as Shalivahana Shaka to celebrate his victory against Vikramaditya of Vijayini in the year 78. Over time, the word Shaka became generic and come to be mean an era. The era thus came to be known as Shalivahana Shaka. Vikram Samvat, are also known as Vikram calendar, is the historical Hindu calendar in the Indian subcontinent. It is used in several states. The Parsi community in India uses the Shahanshahi era. Now we are going to learn about historical periods. These are examples of historical eras, also called historical periods. A historical era is a specific time frame historians have classified due to commonalities within that time frame. The Great Depression is among the easiest eras to identify because of its extreme characteristics. We learned in the first lesson, history is a science that tells us about events that happened in the past. In a broad sense, the period of history goes back to the time of the birth of our solar system. Our solar system, as we have already learned in EVS 1, our solar system came into being about 4.5 billion years ago. Our Earth is a planet in the solar system. So, it is presumed that the Earth was also formed 4.5 billion years ago. The span of 4.5 billion years since the Earth's formation is a vast period of time. It is not easy to grasp this entire period all at once. So, it is divided into number of stages in order to understand it better. Therefore, the time in history is divided into two main periods. First one is prehistoric period, second one is historic period. Let's learn about prehistoric period. Means prehistory. That means before history. The prehistoric period is the period for which no written records are available by which to write its history. That is during the Stone Age period when man did not know how to write. That time is recorded as prehistoric period. Second one is historic period. Historic period is the period for which written records are available using which we can write history. So that's all about historical periods. Now let's learn the last part of the chapter, scientific methods of measuring time and establishing age, dating, that is the dating method. So here in the timeline you can see that in the textbook page number 8, birth of Shivaji Maharaj 1630, oath of Swaraj 1645, escape from Agra 1666, coronation 1674, death 1680 was the death of Shivaji Maharaj. This way, important events in the life of Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj marked by 1630 AD to 1680 AD. This could be the timeline of the life of Shivaji Maharaj. Actually, we are measuring time when we talk about today's date or day of the week, etc. We have seen that there are various methods of measuring time. These methods allow us to identify a particular day, month or year with respect to an earlier or later day, month or year. For example, if it is June, then we know that the earlier month was May and the next one will be July. If today is the 10th of June, then we can tell that tomorrow will be the 11th of June and yesterday was the 9th of June. Thus, when we measure time, we actually measure its length. The events before the beginning of the Common Era are mentioned as having occurred before the Common Era. Information about some of these events can only be obtained with the help of evidence buried under the ground. Evidence means proof. This evidence is usually in the form of broken man-made artifacts, that is, giving a shape to an object by man. For example, pot, vessels, etc. and fallen structures. With the help of these remains and using scientific methods, we can determine the time of the events that took place thousands of years ago. These are many layers of soil deposited one above the other under the surface of the ground. The period of these layers and of the remains found in them cannot be stated definitely in terms of dates. However, a rough estimate of how many years ago they existed can certainly be made using scientific methods such as carbon-14, that is C14 analysis, means a long-lived, naturally occurring radioactive carbon isotope of mass 14 used in carbon dating and as a tracer in biochemistry. Tree rings analysis means dendrochronology or tree ring dating is the scientific methods of dating tree rings, also called growth rings, to the exact year they were formed. It is also used as a check in radiocarbon dating to celebrate radiocarbon ages. New growth in trees occurs in a layer of cells near the bark. These methods are known as dating techniques. By using these dating techniques, we learn how old the layers of soil and the remains found in them are. Then we can determine their period approximately. If it is possible to decide the age of ancient objects up to 60,000 years old with the help of the carbon-14 method. This method was invented by the scientist Willard Libby. Okay, if an earthen pot is estimated to be 5,000 years old with the help of dating techniques, we can say that the earthen pot dates back roughly to 3000 BC. Then we can conclude that the period of the culture to which the pot belongs must be around 3000 BC. So, this way we have completed the chapter History and the Concept of Time. So, do read this lesson from your textbook for your better understanding. Stay safe, keep learning, and thank you. सांगली शिक्षण संस्था सांगली नावाने सुरू असलेल्या यूट्यूब चॅनलला सबस्क्राईब करा व शेजारी असणाऱ्या बेल आयकॉनवर क्लिक करा, म्हणजे पुढील व्हिडिओज नोटिफिकेशन्स आपणास येत राहतील.